I'm David McDonald, the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. And on behalf of the board of directors of the DNA, I welcome you and thank you for attending the meeting tonight. DNA's mission is to enhance the quality of residential life in the historic landmark district, protect Savannah's unique downtown environment, and advocate public policies which support those objectives. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Georgia Power, Lillian and Carrie Breitbart, Stacy Donegan, and the Beehive Foundation for support. I'd also like to recognize several members in the audience. Alderman Leggett, Alderman Beck, is Alderwoman Bell. She says she's going to come tonight. Is Carol here? Outside. Chief Faye DeMassimo. He is the Chief of Planning and Economic Development for the city. We also have some other associations here and representatives from the Tourism Leadership Council, Visit Savannah, Victorian Neighborhood Association, Starland Neighborhood Association, and several walking tour companies as well. Thank you all for coming. A general reminder to those of you who have yet to complete our 2-question survey. I ask you to please do so before it closes on Thursday. When the board decided to do a survey, it was originally only to be one question concerning the issue of homelessness and vagrancy, which will be discussed as part of our March 25th meeting. Note the date change. We moved it to the 25th next month because of who wants to go the day after St. Patrick's Day. However, recently, there have been comments raised by some members, as well as from the media, that the board does not truly represent the wishes and the interests of the members and residents. So we added the second question to verify that we are aligned with residents and members about the tourism issue. As of tonight, there have been over 200 responses, with 82% supporting the board on this issue, so thank you. We will publish the results of the survey in next week's newsletter, and it'll also be on our website after that, showing the comments as well. I would like to respond to several submitted comments that I've reviewed already. And I'll recognize Alderwoman Bell. Several commenters indicated that in their view, the board is just solely focused on tourism issues to the negligence of everything else. And I want to be clear that our efforts are much wider. We also attend city council meetings, all zoning meetings. We monitor new ordinances as well as the agendas of all the zoning commissions and the city council. We have continued to offer comments at these public hearings and public meetings, the best interests of the residents in downtown. And we will continually working with the city on the issue of homelessness and vagrancy. I will admit that this is a much more difficult issue, as the city prefers a holistic approach to vagrancy and not one of enforcement of existing ordinances. We will talk about that in March. I say this because while the board focuses on these issues, I may have been negligent in updating you on them in the weekly newsletter. I will correct that and keep you apprised of all the activities that your board does. Captain, I don't think you have anything to ask tonight or add tonight. Did you want to speak? I should have asked you earlier. Sorry if I put you on the spot. Before we get into our presentation, I wanted to let everyone know that once again this year, the DNA will have a float in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Hence, that's why there's no meeting. Those who participated last year found it to be enjoyable. It was the first time I actually walked a parade route, and it was fun. We invite anyone interested in participating, feel free to walk the parade route, a few blocks, the whole route, or anything. Just join us and walk along. It really is a fun time when you're interacting with the crowd as they crush you. Feel free. It is. We have a float. The committee. We're going to do a really good design this year. Just not going to be a bunch of chairs. Tonight's meeting, as you saw in the lobby, is to provide an update on our efforts concerning the quality of life downtown as it relates to tourism. As you may recall, we first started talking about this issue in March 2023. During that meeting, We show the concerns residents had with noise from continuous tours in our neighborhood that run from 8 a.m. until midnight, leaving just 8 hours a day for residents without intrusions of tours. When we sent out our newsletter in 2023 indicating that tourism was to be the subject, I was quickly contacted by Charlie Brazil, the Vice President of Old Town Trolley, who quickly stated that he was interested in being involved in the discussion. Within days after that meeting, Charlie and I met. He offered to meet with us and work out some resolutions, and he immediately changed trolley routes to reduce the volume in many squares, Washington and Warren being one of them, or two of them, I guess, to reduce that traffic. Charlie also researched and identified directional speakers for use inside the trolleys to eliminate noise from them. As a result of his cooperation, we quickly worked with the city for an ordinance change to require trolleys to use either directional speakers or in-ear technology. And I want to publicly thank Charlie for his support and willingness to meet with residents and work to resolve issues for both of us. So thank you, Charlie. Okay. I'd also like to remind everyone that it is not an issue just for Washington and Warren Square. As I have emphasized to the city numerous times, the problem is the same in Columbia Square, Lafayette Square, Chippewa Square, Taylor Square, and a few others. As you will also see from the presentation tonight, the issue isn't one tour company or one type of tour. It is the cumulative volume of tours in our small neighborhood. You saw the sheets outside. Those are documented, researched by Nancy Radke, every single tour that's scheduled and advertised. Emphasize the word schedule, as you'll see during our presentation. So I will now hand it over to our presenters, DNA Board Tourism Chair Mary Sue McCarthy and DNA member Nancy Radke.
Anyway, tonight Mary Sue McCarthy and I are going to give you an update, although David's done a bit of it, on our efforts to rebalance tourism and residential life. We're really proud of what the DNA has accomplished through the collaboration with trolley companies and the city, and we want to share those results with you. We also want to apprise you of DNA's efforts to collect meaningful and comprehensive data that's critical for our continued success in working with city officials and the tourism industry. 2 years ago, I talked to you about the specific problems downtown residents were experiencing with trolley tours. Mary Sue will tell you about our accomplishments in that regard. She will also share with you several other DNA research studies and a series of videos that will help to illustrate tourism congestion and code violations. Then I'll come back to the podium to talk to you about the bigger picture of tourism in Savannah. Last year, dozens and dozens of DNA members have helped us to piece together a more comprehensive understanding of the actual number and of all the types of tours in our city and their impact on the residential life. We thank you for your time and for your efforts. Now, we've alluded to these, and you may have seen our enormous charts in the lobby outside this room. If not, please take a little time to look at them when you head out. They represent a year's worth of data collection from advertised tour departures on the web. The sheet on the left is for vehicular tours, and the sheet on the right is for walking tours. This data will help you understand not only the massive volume of tours in the historic district, but also their impacts seasonally and daily. I'll also illustrate new congestion threats that we're facing with the opening of a vastly enlarged convention center and the construction of many new hotels. At the end, we'll offer several suggestions for improving the situation. But before we move further into our presentation, let me emphasize that we are not talking about punishing tour operators or putting them out of business. We are talking about responsible tourism, which can make Savannah a better place to live and work in, as well as a better place to visit. We are talking about offering each other respect and consideration when we are going about our jobs and our lives. As Mayor Johnson has so eloquently said over and over, we know tourism is very important here, but we have to manage that. We have to recalibrate, because the fact is that Savannah should be a great place to live first, then a great place to visit. 2 years ago, I talked to you about the specific problems downtown residents were experiencing with trolley tours. Mary Sue will tell you about our accomplishments in that regard. She will also share with you several other DNA research studies and a series of videos that will help to illustrate tourism congestion and code violations. Then I'll come back to the podium to talk to you about the bigger picture of tourism in Savannah. Last year, dozens and dozens of DNA members have helped us to piece together a more comprehensive understanding of the actual number and of all the types of tours in our city and their impact on the residential life. We thank you for your time and for your efforts.
Nancy mentioned we have been working hard to understand the nature and dynamics of tourism in Savannah. The DNA has made great progress in making quality of life uppermost in the minds of city government and the tourism industry. In the past 2 years, we have had several successes, which we are pleased to share. The first news I want to share is that Nancy and I are now the DNA representatives on the Tourism Advisory Committee. So please reach out to us with your quality of life issues. TAC is comprised of 5 representatives from the tourism industry and tourism leadership and 4 residential representatives, 2 from the DNA, 1 from the Victorian neighborhood, and 1 from the Thomas Square neighborhood. Thank you for coming tonight. 1 representative is from Historic Savannah Foundation and is also considered a residential member. We make policy recommendations in all of these areas to the Office of Special Events and Tourism, headed in the interim by Faye DeMassimo, and the city manager and council. There's more here. Okay, but first I want to share this wild comedy tour was truly the wake-up call that propelled the DNA into the advocacy needed to balance tourism and quality of life. The tour had existed unnoticed for many years on an enclosed Kelly trolley, but once it moved to an open-sided Old Town trolley, it became a rolling noise ordinance offense. After 2 months of vigorous neighborhood and city engagement, Old Town purchased and enclosed trolleys for this tour. It continues without breaking the city noise ordinance and upsetting neighborhoods. The Morons Tour had neighbors of Washington Square recognize that all open-sided trolleys were breaking the city's amplified sound ordinance. It was hard to ignore the tours, which rolled by every 4 minutes and could be heard inside their homes. This propelled us to conduct research. We discovered 31,000 scheduled trolley, hearse, and van departures advertised on websites annually. 31,000. Our presentation in March of 2023 to the DNA membership was then given at the October 2023 TAC meeting. The trolley companies quickly responded, especially Charlie Brazil of Old Town Trolley. In December, they proposed installation of directional speakers that would respect the ordinance and keep the narration inside the trolleys. Based on the positive feedback from residents, the City of Savannah Council passed a new ordinance to abate trolley amplification noise according to a 3-year schedule. As you can see in the schedule, 35% of trolley fleets must be fitted with the speakers by June 1 of this year. By June 1 of 2026, 75% of the fleets must be compliant. And by June 1, 2027, 100% of the fleets must be so. This shows how solutions can be accomplished when we all work together. The DNA wants to thank the trolley companies for choosing to make a major investment in quiet technology. We appreciate your efforts to responsibly improve the experience of the historic district for visitors and residents alike. A side note here, Old Town Trolley purchased the tour portion of Old Savannah Tours at the end of last month. Old Savannah will retain the shuttle portion. In addition to these policy accomplishments, we also want to highlight DNA's many research efforts in 2024. We did these studies to understand the big picture of tourism and to understand its impact on the residential experience. Last year, dozens of DNA volunteers spent 6 days at the Savannah Visitor Center studying the on-demand departures of hop-on, hop-off trolleys. We discovered there are no limits to how many trolleys can be added to the schedule, and many shuttle buses bring people to the departures at the visitor center from hotels all day long. Hop-on, hop-off trolley departures are based on demand, and more trolleys will go out if there are more customers. Likewise, less will go out if there are fewer. Dynamic scheduling like this does make sense, but there are no limits on the numbers of tour departures. So as tourism grows, there will be more and more trolley departures. Certain ghost tours also use dynamic scheduling. This is a flexible system where on a busy night, more tours can be added to accommodate tourist demand. Several days before a scheduled departure, there will be 7 tours listed, as you can see on the left. During the day of departures, on the right, these numbers can balloon to a maximum of 15 tours. On nights when there are 15 departures, over 500 visitors can be transported to residentially zoned Lafayette Square. The impact on that square is felt from 6:30 p.m. until 11:45 p.m. Every year, the trolley companies submit route maps to the city manager. Last year, after being shown East Bryant Street had become a pinch point, many tours were rerouted to avoid that area. But rerouting created other pinch points. We analyzed all the trolley route maps for 2024 from the trolley companies. On the right is our base map, which shows the number of trolley routes that pass through each square. The green line marks the boundary between the residentially zoned and the commercially zoned parts of the city. The number of routes through residentially zoned squares are in red, and the ones through commercially zoned squares are in purple. The distribution looks rather even, but the actual number of trolleys passing specific sites multiple times a day is not. As you can see, the most visited squares are located in residential neighborhoods. Columbia and Lafayette Square are the most visited with an average of 137 passes each day. All around the edges of the historic district are squares that are not visited or only occasionally visited. Another thing important to realize that these are just trolley passes. There are walking tours, horse-drawn carriages, segways, bicycle tours, hearses, vans, e-cruisers, and numerous other vehicles that pass through these squares as well. Many residential squares also feel pressure all evening long from ghost walking tours and pub crawls in Columbia Square, along Colonial Cemetery, Lafayette Square, at Clary's Cafe, at Taylor Square, Monterey Square, at the Eliza Thompson House, and Madison Square. Tourism is currently allowed in the circled neighborhoods from 8 a.m. until midnight. That is 16 hours a day. This gives residents just 8 hours of peace. That's out of balance and obviously needs to be corrected. We don't think it's too much to ask for all tours in residential areas to end by 10 p.m. This will give tours access to these areas for 14 hours a day and give residents 10 hours of peaceful enjoyment of their homes, which is more balanced. Our audit shows there is an average of 29 tours, 22 walking and 7 vehicular, per night that would have to rework their routes to accommodate these new restricted hours. Residents understand if your tour is affected. It can bring complications. That is why we want to hear your ideas of how we can bring respect and balance back into evening tourism. The DNA remains open and hope tour operators will too.
which was very sought
Excuse
after
me.
in the night. Make things worse, she was pregnant.
Excuse me. Sorry.
We don't even know. We don't even know she knew she was pregnant. And the sailor came back the next day.
So I like that as a visual. We had the good drugs.
Studio 54?
We had the good coke. We didn't have to worry about fentanyl.
But she told me that I discovered this, right? She found his body, as a health process continues as it gets worse and worse inside your body. It starts to exit your mucous membrane. You will leak this filth out of your eyes, nose, ears, and from your down there holes. After that, it is in your blood. Every touch you'll see this vial endlessly.
December 1896, the money died up in that room. Two people we know of have died in the room. But some that you walk by here, you look at the windows walk, you may see a dark shadow of the back and forth of you. You may see like a red ember like somebody smoking this. That is the spirit that is everyone to Washington to this day. So if you stay here, you got good security, you know that. Well, Carl heard it. You look up and you see a son of the pool. Yeah, Carl Booster, he knows he did. He's got the whole fact he came over here to West Side, covered in blood, he's blowing, he's screaming. Put a big wooden table. Well, the dust on blood, he's covered in. No, West had become a big pocket. Starts hacking down. He does something hard to pocket. Somebody hands on blood. Then that pocket, if it was his penis, his testicles, destroyed razor. West is a castrate. When somebody says there's consequences, Savage West bled. That was Jim Williams' favorite Christmas story. Now this is Happy Holidays, a castration story. Jingle balls.
Code enforcement can make a big difference in the situations I've just shown you. We encourage the city to work with tour operators to address these problems more aggressively. Only in the last 2 months has the city employed 1 additional day and 2 nighttime tourist code compliance officers. While this is a positive start, the numbers are woefully inadequate for the massive number of tours occurring in our city 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Controls are obviously one tool, and the DNA has several ideas. First, limiting times tours can operate in residential neighborhoods. Second, requiring technology to keep tours from disturbing the peace. 3, controlled growth in the proliferation of tours in residential areas. 4, increasing resources for the incredibly understaffed Office of Special Events, Film, and Tourism. This should include the immediate selection of a new director, a night manager, and increased tourism code enforcement officers. And lastly, but never not least, making good on a commitment to balance tourism and quality of life.
All right, so tonight we're going to use the data that we collected in 2024 that you saw outside to help everybody understand the current size and impact our thriving tourism economy is placing on our city and our residents in 5 specific areas. The historic district is finite, and it is increasingly unable to handle tour volume and times. A significant portion of the year, tourism is above average. The number of visitors to Savannah is growing and overwhelming residents. The expanded convention center is driving hotel development. Filling hotel rooms is the prime driver of increased visitor numbers. the lack of tourism management by the city, and self-regulation by the tourism industry are, are pushing the quality of both residential life and the visitor experience to their limits. Without data, all we have is opinion. Instead, DNA's 2024 tourism audit offers new, comprehensive data about the challenges we are facing. We are sure other organizations have data to add to this, and we welcome it. In that way, we can refine the numbers and come up with new solutions that will benefit our beautiful city and help it to thrive into the future. We are seeking collaboration. So, first we looked at the number of tour companies currently operating in Savannah. We then counted advertised departures that were posted on the web month after month for the entire year. In 2024, our study found 21 vehicular tour companies. Of these, 19 had advertised bookings we could count. We excluded the one with private bookings because we can't guess at how many private tour departures there might have been in a year. And we also chose not to review the one Bonaventure Cemetery tour company because they really have no impact on the residential area. We found 82 walking tour companies. There were 61 with advertised schedules. And we did not count others because, again, their departure data was not publicly known and available. Of course, our numbers would have been even bigger had we been able to access all the data from 103 tour companies that we have identified. So let's take a look at how many tours 19 vehicular companies offer. We found that these companies offered 58 named tours in their collective tour portfolios. These 58 named tours advertised, hold on to your seats, 89,973 departures annually. Wow, that's a lot of vehicular tours on the streets, right? But that's not all the tours. Let's see what 61 walking tour companies add to the sidewalks and squares. So these 61 walking tour companies advertised 180 named tours. These 180 named tours, advertised named tours, resulted in 62,713 departures annually. The entire historic district is approximately 2.5 square miles. Tours are primarily concentrated in a bit more than 1 square mile from Gaston Street to the river and from MLK Boulevard to East Broad, seen here bordered in red. Combined, the 80 tour companies in our study offered 152,686 advertised tour departures annually. On average, there were 421 tours operating up to 16 hours a day from 8 a.m. to midnight, 362 days of the year. We didn't count Christmas, New Year's, and St. Patrick's Day. So here are the details of how the vehicular tours are distributed among 10 different types of tours. And here is the distribution of walking tours by subject matter. You'll remember problem number 1 is finite geography. That's because the historic district everyone wants to visit isn't growing. However, the number of visitors and tours are. But daily averages are, of course, just averages. In many months, the number of departures significantly exceeded 421, which is indicated by the straight aqua line. The undulating blue line below it represents scheduled vehicular tour departures, and the yellow line below that represents walking tours. The big white line up at the top, that represents the combined daily tour departures. Well, currently, we are just coming out of our longest stretch of below average daily tour departures, which occur in November, December, and January. Our lowest month for tour departures in 2024 occurred in January, averaging 186 per day. In 2024, there were 5 straight months of above average tourism from March through July. And then when you add another peak in October, there were 6 months of above average tourism. This illustrates problem number 2. It shows you how seasonality obviously adds to more concentrated tourism when it's nice outside. Problem number 3, the daily visitor to resident ratio. Understanding this dynamic is going to take me more than one slide to illustrate. And first, we need to delve into tourism numbers. This is always a minefield, as many of you know. But that said, let's do it. Visit Savannah data says that there were 6.1 million visitors to Savannah back in 2003. The latest numbers it reported for 2023 were 17 million. Whether these numbers are fully accurate or not, the number of visitors has obviously grown exponentially in the last 20 years. The data says 17 million is made up of 10 million visitors staying overnight and 7 million day trippers. These are defined as people coming in for shopping, dining, jobs, appointments, and even tours. No matter the reason, they still impact congestion. But hold on, that 17 million is for all of Chatham County, including Pooler, Tybee, and Garden City. So how do we get to the numbers for Savannah? Well, thanks to Smith Travel Research, which collects data on overnight stays in hotels, we have been able to learn that 70% of the overnight stays are in the city. That means that there were some 7 million overnight visitors in Savannah in 2023, and using that same percentage, which is probably a conservative number, we can estimate there were at least 4.9 million day trippers. By these calculations, about 12 million people visited Savannah, the city of Savannah in 2023. 12 million overnight and day tripping visitors to Savannah. On its face, it sounds better than 17 million, right? 13 years ago in 2012, Joe Marinelli, president of Visit Savannah, already made a predictive observation. He said, tourism officials can't get caught up in the words, bigger, larger, more. These numbers are great and really allow us to puff out our chests a little bit, but Savannah's historic district was not designed to accommodate 12 million visitors, let alone 13 million or 15 million. Historic district residents can confirm from experience he was certainly correct. And we can measure our discomfort. Tourism professionals from the World Tourism Organization, which is the United Nations specialized agency on tourism, have developed a measure of low, medium, and high stress through an analysis of the visitor to resident ratio. When the stress is low, there is additional capacity to welcome new visitors. When the stress is medium, there are increasing levels of stress being placed upon residents. And when the stress is high, visitors and residents experience congestion at key visitation areas, competition for parking, difficulty booking restaurants, tables, and pushback from resident community. Sounds familiar? Yeah. The ratio is calculated by dividing the total daily visitors by the number of residents. Per the 2020 census, there were 19,833 residents in the historic district. We experienced low stress by these calculations only in 1 month, January. We experienced medium stress in February, August, September, November, and December. And high stress dominated the calendar for 6 months of the year. In other words, according to metrics used by the tourism industry itself, tourism and residential life in Savannah are demonstratively out of balance fully half of the year. And we can see the situation getting more congested and stressful. The Savannah Convention Center, newly doubled in size, is now officially open. There will be untold numbers of additional attendees. Many of these will bring their family members along to enjoy our beautiful city and all it has to offer. You know how typically it's quiet in the city early in the week. Now, it is highly likely the convention center will be booking groups for these days, so hotel rooms are always occupied. Similarly, there will be fewer quiet months because conventions will probably be encouraged to book in January, February, August, September, November, and December to fill hotel rooms when tourists don't typically visit. Bookings at the convention center have the potential of raising the visitor to resident stress ratio to high for most of the year. Here are some other impacts the convention center will bring. Increased circulator transportation, shuttling conventioneers between the convention center and the historic district hotels. More private walking tours and vehicular tours for conventioneers. Need for evening entertainment for conventioneers and after exhibition hours. Increased events in public spaces to accommodate convention receptions, gatherings, and parties. All these activities will be by private bookings and will increase the volume of tourism activity and congestion above and beyond the web advertised tours we counted in 2024. Obviously, the expanded convention center is also driving the construction of hotels. These all five, all north of Oglethorpe Avenue, are nearing completion and will be opening probably 2025, 2027. To these five, shown in red on the map, another 6 hotels, shown in yellow, will soon begin construction, leading to a total of 1,842 new hotel rooms, all located north of Oglethorpe Avenue. Just filling those new hotel rooms at 77% occupancy can conservatively add 416,516 additional visitors annually. That's assuming 1 person per room. The industry standard, however, is double that, which would be 833,082 more visitors. Either way, it's obvious. This growth in tourist lodgings will bring increased pressure to the historic district. Many offices and other non-tourist businesses have already been driven out of downtown because of parking issues and congestion. And those that remain can't find office space because developers are buying office buildings and converting them to hotel rooms. At the same time, more and more homes are being turned into vacation rentals. Without serious restrictions on tourism growth, Savannah will lose the business and residential mix that has made it a great place to visit, a place that isn't Disney World, and a great place to work and also to live. Since its inception, tourism has been considered a benign activity. It has brought wealth, indeed, to Savannah, helping revitalize downtown and provided jobs. Restaurants and events have found homes here, and both residents and visitors enjoy them. However, it really is a big mistake to think that tourism can only bring good. After decades of virtually uncontrolled growth and a lack of good tourism management, Savannah is poised to cross a threshold where tourism creates more problems than benefits. Addressing the challenges facing tourism in Savannah will require intense effort and cooperation among multiple stakeholders. 70 years ago in Savannah, the same sorts of stakeholders, residents, developers, architects, businesses, and entrepreneurs came together to save Savannah from the wrecking ball of urban renewal. Savannahans founded the historic Savannah Foundation and decided to save and restore their beautiful city. Their community-wide effort and collaboration made Savannah the unique tourism destination that it is today. The question now is, can we once more come together to save Savannah from another type of city wrecking ball over tourism? By all measures, Savannah is at the threshold of over-tourism, which has ruined so many beautiful destinations around the world. However, the Downtown Neighborhood Association believes that we can save Savannah Savannah again by embracing principles of responsible tourism instead. To be successful, the Downtown Business Association, the city, Visit Savannah, the Chamber of Commerce, tour companies, neighborhood organizations, residents, and others will need to come together and rethink our current practices and look for innovative solutions to better manage congestion and tourism flows. We have the data, we have the evidence, we see the big picture, and now so do you. Thank you.